So Spider-Man was trending this week.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So all right. So I'll kind of line it up then. So basically, as I'm sure many people have already heard, but Spider-Man is out of the MCU because Disney and Sony couldn't make it reach a deal, and I think we're all on the same page that Disney is kind of overstepping their bounds a little
He
bit.
got greedy.
Yeah.
They got greedy. Well, because like the thing is, I don't understand where the line, like where the logic with this is, because it seems like neither studio was really planning for this possibility of them like losing Spider-Man on either side, because they just made Far From Home, which pretty much set him up as like the next Iron
Yeah.
Man, and then Sony's been making their Spider-Man-less universe, which they have like 6 movies planned out for, and neither one of those studios' plans really make any sense with each other. So I don't really understand like.
Yeah. It seems as though Sony is doing like a classic I'm going to take my ball and go home kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because if Marvel doesn't want to play fair,
Then fucking I'm leaving.
yeah.
I'm so fucking curious to see where they go from here because of how much of a big deal that they've made him. Because now, he was in Endgame, obviously, so all those people, like, know who Spider-Man is, or at least know him. So, like, now literally none of the people that are still alive in the Marvel Cinematic Universe cannot even reference Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, that's the piece. It's like the biggest part of this is that like they're going to keep Tom Holland, and it's like
Yeah.
how in what world are you going to do that? And then because I think they said that like the writers from Far From Home are going to write like the third and fourth Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, and it's like, so are you going to have Tom Holland Spider-Man now? Like, and then is he not going to be able to mention Tony Stark or Captain America?
And Happy can't be there, and fucking there's no involvement with any of the other fucking heroes.
Yeah, and that's the problem is Marvel really set it up where he was going to be like a big part of their plans going forward. And now you're going to make these movies. Is it like a continuation of Far From Home and Homecoming? Or is it like we're starting new just with Tom Holland still as Spider-Man?
Yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah, well, because there's 2 sides to it. I don't know much about like I don't remember which one's like actually true, but it's either the original deal was Disney got 100% of the merchandising rights, and then the first like the 5% of the first weekend's box office, and then the 2 things that I've heard they wanted to extend that to was either they get 50% of the box office rights, but they'll like help Sony pay for 50% of the movie, because Homecoming and Far From Home Sony paid for those, and then or it was that they were not going to pay for any of it and still get the 50%. And it's like either one of those routes, like obviously if Disney paid for a little bit of the movie, or I guess half at that point, that would be better. But either one of those, like they're whittling away at Sony's profits that they'll reach with Spider-Man so much that Disney went into this in a situation where it's like Sony, I don't understand how they thought Sony would ever say yes to that. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a classic case of like Disney thought that, I don't know, Disney's huge now. They own a lot of things. I think they just thought like we can just do whatever we
Well,
want.
yeah, probably. It was probably a situation like, well, hey, look, hey guys, look, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have all the power, and the fans love our movies, so we're gonna take Spider-Man for
Yeah.
all it's worth, and fuck you.
And that's the dynamic too, where it's like people are gonna go watch Marvel movies regardless if Spider-Man's in them,
Yeah.
and people are gonna go watch Spider-Man movies regardless of whether he's in the MCU.
Right.
So it's like no one really had like overwhelming leverage in this situation, and I think Disney thought they did, and we're like, "You're gonna bend to us," and they were like, "No."
It's like, I feel like Sony can come back from this really easily though by just like throwing him and Venom into him, like make it, oh, Peter's moving to Seattle now for no reason, and now him and Venom are gonna team up.
They can do it for like he's going to Seattle for like college.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's really that's a quick redemption on Sony's part, whereas Marvel's kind of
I don't know, but it's
sit there
definitely
with a
like
thumb up their
gonna
ass.
be. It's gonna be weird because it's like we've just watched this Spider-Man, Tom Holland, like grow with like we were saying. It's like he's like his character and his movies are like integral with the MCU more than like any other standalone MCU films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like to just throw him out of that and be like, okay, we're gonna add him in this movie with Venom. We're just gonna move him to Seattle and he's in with a movie with Venom now. It's like, well, why? Like, what happened to all the the build up from the first two movies.
I feel like you can't even address that though. There's no way to address it.
Yeah, or at least naturally.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like I seriously doubt that Disney and Sony had a clause where it was like, oh, if this contract breaks, like this is how we'll separate him or whatever. So now there's going to be this like no matter what they do on Disney or Sony side, like it's going to be awkward. Like whatever happens with Tom Holland and Spider-Man, it's going to be like awkward because you're not going to be able to just smoothly transition him into Sony or out of the MCU.
Yeah.
But so like I was gonna say that just to give references for like how much Sony is just like they had like a lot of room because the best movie that like best Spider-Man movie, how much money it did was Far From Home with 1.1 billion, and then Spider-Man 3 at 800 or almost 900 million, then Homecoming, Spider-Man, and these are all within about like the 700 to like 900 $1 million range, and then the lowest one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is about a completely different Spider-Man character, and it's still made just shy of $400 million. And it's like the fact that Disney like put like that's how much money this property makes. So like Sony has a lot of like leverage as far as like how much money they're like kind of willing to give as long as it like creates more hype about Spider-Man within the MCU and stuff. But Disney whittled them down so much that they couldn't even like give any more of their margins or anything.
Yeah. And I was thinking too about Spider-Man. Let's just go back to it. It's like I doubt they're going to be able to reference like Tony Stark if they continue and to make two Sony movies.
No.
So it's like his suit. Is he going to have the Iron Spider suit? Is he going to have the Stark suit? Are you going to have to make a new suit? Like there's so many. I feel like it will be much easier for Marvel to be like, yeah, Spider-Man's gone, than it will be for Sony to be like, okay, so remember all the things from the first two movies? Doesn't matter. Like we're starting new, but it's like the same character, but it's new. Kind of
I
thing.
feel like they could still keep the like Iron Spider suit and the fucking, this and that, other than the glasses, because it's like every time they reference it, oh, they're Tony's glasses. They control Tony's things. They literally never have to say like Tony made the Iron Spider suit. It's just he's wearing the Iron Spider suit now.
And that's not even to say that these freaking, whatever. I wasn't a huge fan of the Venom movie.
Yeah.
And to think like, oh, now we're just going to throw Tom Holland in with him if that's like the plan. I don't know if that's even like a thing I want to see.
Yeah, it definitely, because I don't think Venom, like, Venom originally was supposed to be rated R, and I definitely don't think that what we got, I mean, obviously it was PG-13, but like, there were moments when I saw Venom that I was like, yeah, they definitely wanted this to be R, like originally.
Yeah.
But the whole idea was that they wanted to reel it back so that if Sony or Disney wanted to do something with like, letting these Sony Spider-Verse characters come in or whatever, that it would be a little bit more applicable. But now, like, Spider-Man's back in Sony's hands. So like are we going to get like R-rated Venom movies and is like, are they going to go full in on it? I don't think they're like in a really weird position because like the whole like they just rebooted Spider-Man to get Tom Holland into it, and I don't see where the story element goes of how I just don't see how they're not going to reboot like or how they can.
No.
But I can't even see like Tom Holland Spider-Man in like an R-rated Spider-Man Venom movie.
Well, yeah, because they made it Disney palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like still like high school Peter Parker. Like he's not like the mature.
Yeah, so is this
moved on
fucking high schooler going to
Peter
go there and
Parker.
start fucking murdering people? I don't think so.
Which, I like if you just say like, whatever, the two MCU movies don't matter, and we're like starting anew with Tom Holland. I guess that could work, perhaps, but it's going to be confusing.
And another thing to add to this is we're not even really considering Tom Holland's position in this. Though contractually bound, if he's like giving subpar performances, Sony's gonna be like, all right, kid, we get it, you're cut. So, and he's shown more than once that he's really not with this whole fucking division.
And with all this news like going down, I saw people on Twitter saying, oh, they should reboot it, but with Miles Morales.
I think so too.
Yeah, I heard that too, and I don't think that that's a bad idea, but it's going to be like really weird because now it's like you're going to run your animated universe with Miles Morales and then your live action universe with also Miles. Like, I don't know. It just seems
That's
like.
true. They are making an Into the Spider-Verse too, right?
Yeah, and a spinoff. I don't know for what, but
Yeah,
I know both of those are in development
That's cool.
right now.
I really
and
like that
I'm
animation.
not. Yeah, I'm not one to be like Miles Morales is like whatever. I like his character, but I feel like more casual audiences are like, I want to see like Peter Parker. I want to see Spider Man, like the one that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
it's like
the money is with Peter Parker, not Miles Morales.
Well,
yeah, and like with like MCU and stuff, like Kevin Feige, the executive producer of Marvel, has said that like he really wants to double down with like Peter Parker and that character and Tom Holland, because Tom Holland himself is young, and then you start him off at a really young Peter Parker age. It's like if the MCU can last another 20 years or whatever, when Tom Holland's like reaching into his 40s and he's wanting out of it or whatever, you can start that storyline of Miles Morales, and then like by that time, like I think more people kind of know about him because like animated movies and stuff and everything that they're doing, and then you could still have the Spider-Man character while not like continuing to have to do Peter Parker, and that's an easy transition. But now all that's gone to waste because of this deal too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The thing, it's just Disney literally just bought their their number one competitor in the entertainment industry with like Fox, and got all of X-Men back, got all of these characters back, and I don't understand why they felt like they were at a point where they had to like play such a like aggressive hand.
Well, perhaps they thought, even if we lose Spider-Man, so be it.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I feel like Spider-Man's like a pretty big pull into the MCU. I mean, because it's like Far From Home is an MCU Spider-Man movie, and it made more money than any other Spider-Man movie has. And then Homecoming, I think it was like the third highest. Yeah, Homecoming's the third highest one with 880. So I don't know. I think that it's like, because like Marvel's in a weird spot where they're trying to do a whole bunch of new stuff right now.
yeah, with the shows.
Yeah, and like it just seems like they're like Spider-Man. I don't know where like they wanted for Peter Parker or Spider-Man to be like going forward, but like how do we know that like they didn't want for him to be in the next Doctor Strange movie or Eternals, and they didn't want him to have like a bigger piece in these like movies going forward?
Well, that's true. But then, like, yeah, like you were saying, though, it's like they were building him up like it's the whole Tony Stark Jr. thing, and you just lost, like, Robert Downey Jr., and, like, you're kind of grooming this young actor to be, like, the next front man of this MCU. More than just, like, the character, but, like, the actor,
Yeah.
And now it's, like, kind of lost because it seems like Disney was trying to force their will on Sony, and Sony said no. And now it's like, well, and then, like, they throw up their hands. Like, Kevin Feige was like, well, we enjoyed the character while we had him. We're moving on.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, quickly going back to that point before that you made with the grossing and how much each has made, I feel like that almost played into how Disney/Marvel played their hand. They're like, hey, look, the two movies that we made with Spider-Man are some of the best, so maybe we should just get, like, half the cut.
Yeah. Like, maybe they were saying, like, the reason for its financial success was it's because it was tied in with the MCU.
Yeah. So it's like,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
we get the deal that we want, you still get money, just not as much.
Yeah. Well, there was things where it was like Sony was completely open to talking to Marvel about like, oh, like you want to like change the deal? Yeah, like this is very successful. We don't want to lose this. If you guys want to like negotiate a little bit, we can do that.
And then Feige was like, nah.
And then it was like, yeah, and then it's like, okay, let's come up with the most unreasonable deal we can think of.
Yeah.
I was like, no, we really didn't
But
want
it's
to
just-
negotiate. We just wanted the property.
That's like, yeah, that's like your first offer is like, we're gonna take everything and you get nothing. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Deal.
Well, it's like I know, I don't know, because we can the thing about like, oh, well, we lose Spider-Man, like, oh well, it's like, yeah, I can understand that point of view, but like you're so close to getting like pretty much all your resources back.
Yeah.
And like you need to move forward. I mean, they've got like all the stuff they're doing on Disney Plus, all the shows, all these new movies and everything, which they haven't announced in any of this new Phase 4 stuff, like an actual like another Avengers thing.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't
No.
think about that.
Whoa, then they might be reeling now. Now that Spider-Man's gone.
Well, right, and yeah, that's like my point with all of it is that like they're obviously changing like how they're trying to like structure the MCU in ways that I agree with and disagree with, And it just seems like if you're kind of going to be at like a vulnerable time of like, we don't know how this is going to go, you would want to keep as many of your resources as you could.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I don't know if these shows are going to work out that well with Disney Plus and everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we talk about the fucking fact that some of these shows that so the confusion I just got totally jumbled. I'm all over the place. But I feel like there's a lot of confusion coming. On top of the already losing Spider-Man, there's already going to be a lot of confusion going into these shows. Because fucking, there's a Black Widow show, there's a Loki show, and we just had a fucking film that killed both those characters. So these are taking place in the past. But also there's a show about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they're still alive and well. And, Falcon picked up the Captain America mantle and shit. So it's like, how are people
Yeah.
supposed to like keep this all straight in their heads going into these next films, this next wave?
Well, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, because, again, Kevin Feige, he said that he doesn't want to do more than 3 movies because at that point he worries about keeping quality control, like, to the best that he can. And so it's like now it's like, I think even if, I don't remember the exact slate, but even if they only do like 2 movies a year, like, and then they do like 5 shows a year, it's like that's definitely way more content than like going to 4 movies or 5 movies. And it's like, am I gonna have to watch Loki and Hawkeye and WandaVision and She-Hulk and Moon Knight and like all this? Do I have to watch all of those shows to understand like some small references that are going to be made in the Doctor Strange sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, for the first time in a long time, I think, like, the MCU is in a place, at least for me, of, like, uncertainty, not with, like, what they're releasing, but, like, am I really excited to see what they're, like, coming out with? Because, I don't know, none of these shows really jumped out like, oh, man, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
And then, like, what do we have? A Black Widow movie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Black Panther
then
too.
Doctor Strange, which I am pretty excited about that. But, like, I don't think any of these shows were really doing it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because I'm looking up just to kind of like see if I can get more of the an exact thing of like what's coming forward, but like that's the problem that I have with it is that there's some stuff that I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really cool, and some stuff that I'm like, I don't know about this. And if there's any time for Disney or Marvel to do something different, it is like it's now, like after Endgame and everything, because it's like you can kind of look at it as like, oh, you have like the Infinity Saga, like Iron Man to Endgame, and that's like our thing. So now we're moving forward with like, different characters, different leaders, and all that kind of stuff, and we're gonna do this thing. But I feel like the problem with their logic is that they're like, oh, but this has been so successful for 10 years, we need to double down hard now. When it's like, I think the better thing would have been is to like kind of keep it how they had been doing it, of like 3 movies, maybe even like they could do like a show or 2 or something, and then kind of like get everybody used to like the new characters and the new dynamics, and then like kind of start like doing some like bringing in more, like, okay, now we're gonna do 4 movies, or now we're gonna do like extra shows, whatever it is that they wanted to do, because I think this is like too much all at once. I mean, people have already been talking about like superhero fatigue coming in for a while, and I think this is gonna like pretty much confirm it.
Yeah.
But and you're right. It's like, I don't know, obviously, but like, how much are these shows going to impact the MCU? Like, how important will it be for me to watch all these shows going into the next big MCU movie? And I don't know, but I don't know. I enjoyed some of the Netflix shows, and wasn't a huge fan of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah,
I don't, because I'm looking at like the list, and in 2020 the only things that they have are Black Widow and then Eternals for the movies, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier. However, in 2021 they have Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, The Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and Thor, as well as WandaVision, Loki, that What If animated show, and Hawkeye.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And then the 3 shows that they announced at D23, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk, as far as I understand, those don't have release dates yet. So I guess I don't understand, like, it's just, this is so much, and it's like, if it's, I follow this stuff like a lot, like we all do, and it's like, if we think this is too much, they're gonna lose the casual audience, which quite frankly is probably the bulk of why the MCU is so successful.
yeah. We've made the comparison multiple times, but it's like, whatever we've seen Infinity War, we've seen Endgame. Are those movies good because they're good movies, or are those movies good because it's like the culmination of 10 or 11 years of watching MCU movies?
Yeah.
Does it hit as hard if you haven't seen all the movies leading up?
It's like watching the stock
Right.
market and fucking having a bunch of stock in a company, and then all of a sudden it's like hitting its peak, and you're like going nuts about it.
Yeah, and so
And now
now
it's
you're gonna
dropping
have to
off.
invest not only like going to the movies, but like paying for a subscription service, which isn't like super expensive, but then sitting down watching a show, whether it be 10, 15, 20 episodes long, you know.
Yeah, well, I wonder almost because the whole point about how they haven't announced another Avengers movie, I almost wonder if they're purposely doing that because they're gonna move from like, oh, we're like these are movies and then Avengers, then this movies, then Avengers. If they're gonna kind of take like more like how comic books are of like just kind of like random crossover type stuff, and then
Yeah.
like maybe every now and again doing a big event film, which wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, but again, it's like because it's like now like She-Hulk, she's going to be a character and everything. It's like, is she now going to be making appearances into the movies and stuff, or
Yeah.
is it like how separated is this going to be? Because we've got a Hawkeye and like a Falcon and Winter Soldier shows, which are characters from the movies, and I'm going to assume are going to still have big parts in the movies. But then we also have like characters that are now just going to be from the shows. It's like, how is that crossover going to happen?
Yeah, which brings up a good point, because if you want to expand the MCU, because obviously there's tons of characters, and if you want to expand it to like that point where you're like bringing in all these new characters and like you have this expansive list of characters in your movies, to make like another Endgame would be almost impossible to get everyone on screen.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
would be a lot easier to have like these little like crossover, like where characters meet, and then you have, like you were saying, like the one big like event, like Avengers film.
And then even then, not everybody like has to be a part
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. And my fear with those two is like, as much as we're worried about this shit, on the same field, Disney has another issue with their properties having too much like backing and too much like, past. The whole Star Wars shit with, not that I'm against it, the Obi-Wan story, obviously Obi-Wan has to take place in the past because he's dead now, spoilers. But, they have the Star Wars Rebels show, Star Wars Clone Wars, and technically it's all canon, and they have their own like books and comics and shit. So it's like, that Obi-Wan movie for hardcore fans, not necessarily casuals. I'm sure casuals will enjoy it all the same, but it's like you're really dividing if you're not getting every fucking detail right now.
Yeah, but I feel like, I don't know, for me, I don't know what it's going to be like with this expanded universe that they're trying to build with Star Wars, Disney is, but I've never had like a problem watching any of the Star Wars movies, like the episodic movies, thinking, man, if only I had seen the Clone Wars, I really would have understood this a lot better.
That's another thing though. The prequels
Yeah.
didn't really have much say in the coming, trilogies because of the fact that it's a prequel. So it's just like, it's a self-contained story, and then it really didn't matter very much.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, as like a connection with this Star Wars and Marvel stuff, that like there's a lot of stuff on here that it's like, I'm not sitting here saying that like Disney shouldn't like push as much as like with the properties that they have, especially Star Wars, because that's like a huge cash cow. But like there's just some stuff that I feel like if they never announced Disney Plus, like if they never were like, oh, we're gonna bring in all of our own stuff, like over half of these shows or like movies or like projects that they're doing wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Like one of the things with Star Wars was like the Cassian Andor show, I think is how you pronounce his name. I don't know anybody who was really asking for more from that character.
See, that's right. Like, there's a huge Ewan McGregor to play Obi-Wan again movement. People want to see that, but like you just said, Cassian Andor, I was a fan of Rogue One, but I wasn't like, oh man, I need to see more of that
Please,
guy.
more Cassian Andor.
Well, it's like most people weren't even that excited for, or not, I don't know, not excited, but just weren't all that thrilled about like a Solo movie. And like Han Solo is one of the most beloved characters in Star
That's
Wars.
true.
So it's like, if you can't even get people on board 100% with that, how, like, I don't understand. I don't think that this would have ever existed. And then it's even some stuff like Disney themselves canceled Star Wars Clone Wars, but then it's like, oh, but Disney Plus is coming back, like, or not coming back, but it's like it's coming, and we need more properties, and everybody wants to watch this, so here we go.
Yeah, but I think Star Wars, to me, it's like I feel like it's more the setting that makes it interesting. So, like the Mandalorian show, it's like I don't know much about it, but I think it looked like the world of Star Wars, and I think that's always interesting to me.
Yeah. That show looked pretty cool. Also, just to dive into that a touch.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about that because it's like it's the first like live action not movie Star Wars thing, and I mean not that I thought that Disney was gonna like cheap out on it because I don't think that they would, but I don't know. It's kind of like in a weird because I guess I'm trying to think as far as anything that's been mainstream with like movies and TV shows. This will be the first thing that doesn't have that much of a connection to the overall Star Wars universe because like even with Rogue One, like that was about stealing the Death Star plans, and then Solo was about Solo, and then like everything else was either prequels or sequels to the major movies. So this will be like the first thing where it's like we're going into the world of Star Wars with like really no preconceived notion of like what's going to be here.
Yeah, and to go back to that too, like the budget thing, it's like I was a big fan of, I said before, I was a big fan of the Netflix shows, some of them, especially Daredevil, and I thought it was good, but it definitely wasn't like a movie. It wasn't like watching like one of the MCU films, but it's like, are these MCU shows and these Disney shows gonna like match up in quality to like the movies, or is it gonna be like more like a, like a show, like Game of Thrones, for instance, like that always felt like it felt like an hour-long movie 10 times like in a season.
Yeah, yeah. Because the thing is that like I don't see because I don't know if you saw, but first of all, I think right now like Disney Plus is starting off at like $7.99 a month or something like that, somewhere around there, and then they just announced a deal where if you pay for 2 years of Disney Plus up front, you get the third free, which by month takes the like monthly price down to like just under $4. And I think right now the game that they're playing is let's put as much on the platform as we can to get as many people signed up for it. And then once we get it to a thing like because they have the money to pretty much like kind of like lose for a little bit and get more people onto it. And then once more people are like, oh, like I really like the Cassian Andor show or all these Marvel shows or all these other like, like this Monster Inc. show, like my kids love that show or this and that. It's like these are the programs that we listen to. And then when Disney starts hiking up the prices, people will be more willing to pay for it. Cause I don't, if that's what their whole plan is, it's like putting movie level budgets on all of these shows. I don't understand how they're going to be able to do that and sell the service for so cheap.
That's
and it's my understanding too, though, right, that they're putting all like, are they putting all their previous like their Disney stuff, their like Pixar stuff, like their whole catalog on there?
I think so.
Yeah, everything.
So and that's that too. So you get all these original shows, and then you get the shows that the movies and stuff that people already know that they like. So like all the Disney stuff, the Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel. That's already like established as things that people want to see.
I have a strange feeling like it's going to do exactly what Netflix did. And Netflix, when it was first introduced, they delivered the movies to your home. But when the like app launched and everything, people were like, you're not delivering a movie to me. So obviously the price needs to go down. The price went down. And then all of a sudden fucking Netflix grew like crazy into popularity. And now everyone has a Netflix account. So they were like, you know what, we can slowly raise the price a little. With every coming of every marker,
and people kept paying it because, and it's like, obviously now with all of these companies starting their own streaming services, that's going to go away. But it's just like you're bang for your buck with something like Netflix or a library of streaming services. Like almost all of these services, even if you just got one, it's like obviously I'm not watching every single thing on Netflix, but like if that was all I could pay for, then I would be watching every single thing on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that brings it to another good point, like comparing Netflix to this new Disney Plus thing. How many hundreds of Netflix originals are there that you've never seen, never even heard of, and are garbage?
Yeah.
Well, right. Yeah. Well, the garbage part I agree with, but at the same time, it's like I think that Netflix has kind of known that the writing was in the wall of like these companies wanting to move on, or that they weren't going to be able to keep these like shows that are like big hits for them, Breaking Bad, Friends, The Office, or whatever, and that like eventually those things are going to go. So they double down hard into having their own like stuff. But it doesn't matter if it's shit. Like,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've literally gone on my Netflix app, gone to the Netflix original page, and gone, "Wow, I have never heard of any of these movies, and they all look like trash."
and most of them
Yep. I
But and that's the thing too. Like all these companies are going, like, why do we need Netflix? Because it used to be like Netflix or get fucked. Essentially, it's like put your thing as a Netflix or have fun convincing people to buy your physical copies of things. But now it's like all these companies like are making their own streaming service. Like we have like ABC Plus and like we have this new like DC thing, and they're putting
NBC.
all their stuff on there. So it's like now Netflix is left to go, well, we have like Stranger Things. That's pretty cool.
you got
Yeah, well, it's like, or like, what is it? CBS, like All Access. I literally think they charge. I don't know. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's at least $10 a month, and I think they have 2 shows on the entire program.
nice.
Oh, that's the one, the Star Trek show, right?
Yeah, well, and they're beefing it up. Like they have some other stuff and everything, like the new, the Patrick Stewart, the Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh yeah.
And like an animated Star Wars show. They're gonna put more stuff into it, but like. I don't like at least Disney when they're going forward with this. It's like one, they already have a huge library they're going to put a bunch of stuff onto, and they're going to start hitting it hard with all these original content type stuff. And it's just like you have like CBS All Access, which it's like I think a lot more people know Netflix or Disney properties than they do. Oh yeah, that's a CBS thing.
Yeah.
Like, and then so it's like you didn't want to build up your library like a little bit more before you started charging people for.
And that's the thing. It's like I'm gonna pay for this service to watch Star Trek, or like Disney's coming out here and saying, "Hey, like look, $7.99 or whatever," and you get all these shows that are coming. We get our already like extensive catalog. So
I feel like the only
and it's like we're Disney, you know us, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel. You heard of that before? I'm sure you have.
I feel like the only even real contender to Netflix that has been in the marketplace for a little bit is Hulu, and now Hulu is like pairing itself with D23. I mean, D23, Disney Plus. So it's like, why even have Netflix if I can just have every single Disney property ever, and anything that's not on Disney is on Hulu?
Or why keep my Netflix subscription past the month that they release a new Stranger Things season or whatever Netflix original show I enjoy?
Yeah, it's the same shit that happened with the HBO. As soon as Game of Thrones was over, they probably lost a quarter, if not half, their subscription base.
Well, I think Disney's being smart about it, like keeping it this cheap, because like the whole idea of like you've got Disney doing their own thing, and then it's like obviously they're pairing with like Hulu and ESPN Plus, but then it's also like Warner Brothers is like going to start pairing up with like HBO, and then like Universal's set to do their own thing, and NBC, and like all this different stuff. They're all doing their own thing, and I was like, I think like torrenting and pirating movies is going to start becoming a big thing again eventually.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Because it's like you're like I think that it's like the argument to be made is that like, oh, we're just going to be paying the same amount for cable, which is true, but I think the viewing experience that we have now versus what it was with cable is 10 times better. So it's like you may be paying the same, but you're not getting the same like product or service, whereas but like it's still like people have gotten used to paying this lower level amount for their entertainment. And I don't know. At the same time, though, it's like I feel like you could sign up for Disney Plus and have content for like a while.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's like, why do I sign up for a 2-year cable package with 1,000 channels when I watch 20 of them? Or I could just like bunch 3 or 4 of like these new subscription services every month, and like, no, there's content on there that I'm gonna watch.
that's another like amazing point to add to this conversation. Cable is over. I mean, seriously, in the next fucking 5 years, I don't see cable really being successful or a thing anymore unless it's paired with internet packages, which most of them already are.
And that's the problem with like a lot of these. I've heard like a lot of these like cord cutting services, like YouTube TV, PlayStation View. I've heard is like very good, but it's like you still need internet, and like who do you get internet from?
Your
Comcast,
cable providers,
AT&T. Yeah, so.
Right. Well, and that might be, I mean, I don't know, there might be a new frontier of like internet companies that are going to come that are like like that's their thing. Like we're not bundling with like TV and stuff. Because honestly, if I were cable providers, I would either I would stop worrying about like getting people to sign up for cable, and I would switch over to streaming services. Because like even the TV channels, like we just said, CBS and like NBC, like they're gonna create their own stuff. It's like even the TV channels understand. So it's like I don't understand why cable companies are like, no, this will be okay. Like this is gonna keep going.
Yeah, not to continue on this whole cable thing, but you're 100% right. Like these like staple cable channels like Fox, NBC are like, we know the way, like we see the writing on the wall, and it's not, you know, this 2-year package with your Comcast and 1,500 channels.
It ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, because with our other thing of like, obviously the big things we're paying attention to are Star Wars and Marvel, but a lot of the other stuff, quite frankly, from D23 is like kind of, I don't know, underwhelming. And I know that like a lot of it's not like they're not trying to reach our demographic of like 20-year-old men, but like I don't know any like kid that's gonna be excited for a High School Musical series.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Are they making this High School Musical series based off like, oh, 20-year-olds who have nostalgia, or like, ooh, young kids who are gonna get into High School Musical for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like they
who's
have
the
that.
audience?
Yeah, they have that. They have the Lizzie McGuire show. They've got like
Both of those really
it's those shows,
pander to like the 90s kids genre.
Yeah, it's like there are other shows that they've like announced that like I could be like, oh, you know, those are like those could easily be like just brought in with like kids and stuff, but like I don't think that High School Musical or Lizzie McGuire is big enough in like the new generation that would be watching those shows for them to be like, oh man, more Lizzie McGuire.
A show,
Yeah.
please.
But it's like you've got like the Monsters Inc. show and like the Forky show from Toy Story 4. It's like those shows like, well, Monsters, like it's simple movies that you could just show, or like a Toy Story thing that just happened. Like that's kind of more like on speed, I think, of what you could get like kids to watch. And I don't know. It seems like like once you leave the Marvel and Disney stuff with or Marvel and Star Wars stuff with Disney Plus, I don't know how much they really have like to offer.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I'm not like, I never was huge into like the Disney Channel stuff, or like Disney Channel originals, or I wasn't even really that big into Disney
I'm the
movies.
same way.
So it really isn't like the Star Wars and Marvel stuff is like what I'm into. It's like those are their big hitters, and that's what I wanted to see. Like I could care less if they were making another High School Musical or whatever.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing is that like if you are someone who likes Disney movies, I don't really understand how this whole system works, but because they had the whole thing of like the vault where like only some movies were like available to buy and stuff, which is like a really weird thing to me.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, it was like
understand how
viral
that
marketing.
works.
Like, they'd be like, "We're releasing Bambi from the vault this year. You better get it before it goes back in the vault." You know, like it was like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like that's no longer a thing, which is obviously a huge selling point for like Disney
all those
Plus.
old vaulted movies,
but
now you can watch them.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but I don't know.
It's like on those old Disney VHS tapes. It would be like, "Oh, this year, Beauty and the Beast is being released from the vault." It's like, oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and then it's like we just talked about like High School Musical and Lizzie McGuire. It's like what like besides people who like grew up like watching Beauty and the Beast, it's like I don't know, are they now like, oh man, I gotta show this to my like kid? Is that now like the selling
Damn.
point of like why they're doing that, or is it like, or is it the kids actually like I want to watch that movie? Like I doubt it's the latter.
Well, yeah, but that's how it gets passed down. But I'm wondering whether or not like it stays forever, where we're like we have our entire catalog on Disney Plus, or it becomes a thing where they start taking stuff off and like, oh, this month, you know, Cinderella's back on, or like this month, Nemo's back on, or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, from what we understand / I understand, that Disney Plus is just going to have their entire catalog readily available day one, but even if they didn't, they could totally make it a system where like, oh, not to reference this fucking game, but Fortnite, how they rotate guns and shit, they vault and unvault shit all the time. Disney could do the same thing with their technical vault.
And then it's like back from the vault for this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll have that
don't know.
Netflix rotation.
That's true. Because
But it's
yeah,
like
because stuff goes off and on Netflix
Yeah.
all the time.
$7.99, and you're getting all the Disney, all the Pixar, all Marvel, Star Wars, these shows that are going to come out. I mean, damn.
They're stacked. There's
Yeah.
too much.
And then that's not even like we don't even know all the other stuff because like The Simpsons is gonna be
Yeah,
on it,
holy
and it's like
shit.
what other like Fox properties
Yeah,
are gonna
that's
go
true.
That's
onto
crazy.
it? Like you don't even like
Yeah, that's a good point. Like all what is like 30 seasons, right? Of The Simpsons are putting
30
them on
plus.
yeah.
there. Yeah,
Well, it's like because I doubt like again they own Hulu and stuff, so there's probably some properties that are like yeah no this doesn't really like fit well enough within like our Disney brand or whatever, so we're gonna go push this over to like Hulu, but like even then it's like what do they care? I mean it's still gonna be like as long as people are signing up for it and we're making money, like we can make this small amount by putting stuff like Family Guy and like these R-rated like alien movies over on Hulu,
yeah.
while then having like our brand safe content over here, and maybe Hulu won't make as much money because it doesn't have like the huge like Disney push, but it would still make like a good chunk of change.
And that's the thing. There's still like people like us, like 20-year-old males, who are like, yeah, like this is nice, but like I also like the other stuff.
Yeah, well, I was something I was gonna say that we kind of like moved past was I thought it was kind of interesting that the Rise of Skywalker trailer showed prequel footage.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too with
Yeah.
the mall, I think, right?
Yeah,
It showed
that's-
Maul and
It showed. It
Qui-Gon
showed.
and-
Yeah, it showed a clip from every movie, right? Showed a clip
Yeah,
from
okay.
all
A,
the
a lot
movies
of
so far.
things that I've seen on that on that topic, on that discussion, was like since fucking Rey has like the the dual wield, double-ended lightsaber. I'm fucking stuttering
Yeah.
like crazy.
Yeah.
That it somehow is tied to Maul. Maybe Maul's fucking in this movie and like teaches her some shit or something.
And can I just say, this is one of those things where I don't think I've really actually talked to you a lot about it, Josh, beforehand. But it's like, I saw that Rise of Skywalker trailer, and I saw that ending with Rey, and I was like, man, that looks really corny.
I don't know. I don't know if it looked corny to me. I will say that it definitely was like I was kind of like okay, wait, okay, like it just I don't know. I had to like go back a couple times to really get like the details of what
Yeah.
that was.
Like, the still makes it look a lot better, but like, it just looks so corny. Like, it looks like she's like standing there with like that, her like anger, like, ooh, I'm angry. And then like the lightsaber comes down, and it's like, oh man, like what did I just watch?
I think well that scene what it looks like is it like shows her face and then immediately shows her like pulling out the lightsaber and it like cut like really harshly in the middle between those two. I have to imagine that the context of like whatever scene that is actually like she in whatever form that is, whether it's like a lot of people have talked about it being like a clone, of it actually being her, of you know what I mean, and like I feel like the context of it will maybe kind of make it a little bit better. I just think that it's that quick, like, oh, here's your first reaction type thing. That's what makes it like kind of off-putting.
Yeah.
Which brings up a good point with like the prequels thing is like, what three of us, we don't like the prequels, so I hate the prequels. I'm not a huge fan of them, but it's like, how much is Disney gonna like bring the prequels back in? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say to the point of like, oh, like you know, they showed them all, and then she has like a double-sided lightsaber. It's like, first of all, I don't know how to trust Disney or Star Wars with the marketing anymore because like they marketed Force Awakens as if Finn was gonna be a Jedi, and
That's true.
that never happened. And then in The Last Jedi, I was like, oh, like they did like you know some. Like trickery marketing with The Force Awakens, so like Luke saying the Jedi like should end or whatever, that's not real. But then it was like pretty much everything they marketed actually happened. So I don't know what to think. I don't know if it was like they were like, hey, Rey's gonna have a double-sided lightsaber, let's put Maul in there so that people just start making connections for no reason, or if that is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be weird? It seems like that would be a huge like reveal during the movie, and it's like weird that it would just be put at like the end of this weird teaser. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really know. There's really no context to it at all. They really haven't shown like any of this movie, and I'm kind of like concerned about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they're just keeping it under wraps, and then I guess I don't know, because D23 would have been their big like, hey everybody, look what we're doing, and then
Well,
this is
yeah,
what
I'm
they
saying like
showed.
this movie's coming out in December,
Well,
and it's like,
And then what there is cause for concern because the Last Jedi wasn't
Great.
What everyone wanted it to be. I don't know. I didn't hate it, but like I didn't love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say I enjoyed it a lot better on my second viewing because I think that like I got into the whole thing of like, oh, there's this theory of like who Rey is and this and that, and like when I walked in and like all those were not satisfied, I was like, I don't like
I remember.
that. But then when I went
Yeah.
back and watched it again, it was like now that I can watch it for what this movie actually is rather than what I expected it to be, it was a much better experience.
Yeah, and that's the problem with going into movies with expectations, though. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I want to see about the Knights of Ren. I want to see Rey do this. I want to know who Rey's parents are. But then none of that happens, and you're like, well, that was bad because it's not what I was expecting.
And I think that's just a huge issue that movies that have long-term stories like this always face, because it's inevitable that people will make assumptions and make, yeah, fuck it. Star Wars even misconstrued it sometimes, like the whole, this could be a nothing thing too, like the Rey being a Sith all of a sudden and having this lightsaber. It could be like a nothing, like she picked it up and is wielding it right now, or like a fucking.
She put on a cloak.
Well,
she found like a Sith cloak.
well, it could, or it could be like Dark Rey. So she went into the fucking cave like Luke did and saw Darth Vader for no reason. Some stupid
but
shit.
actually like hugged him. And
Yeah,
gave him a hug.
I like this. Give me a saber.
Well, there is like one theory with that and it's existed before like this whole Dark Rey thing happened, and now it's like being fueled by this, but that Rey is like a clone of Palpatine.
No.
Which I'm like, what they were like, all right, so let's make the clone, but like we don't want to make that old shriveled up guy again. All right, let's get a woman in here.
And that brings up a good point too. It's like, how do you feel about Palpatine being back?
I think it's cool. It's crazy that they haven't shown him yet.
You know what I want? I want the first 30, 45 minutes of The Rise of Skywalker showing me exactly how Palpatine got out of Death Star 2. I'd love to see it.
Good luck
Well,
with
yeah,
that.
because it doesn't seem like I don't know. I mean, is he gonna like again? We haven't seen him. Like, is he gonna come back as a Force ghost? Or are we getting like? Because we've said that like with the prequels, the main storyline was not the main storyline, but one of the bigger ones was like Palpatine talking about how Darth Plagueis was trying to cheat death, and then like Palpatine was then trying to figure out that secret. And it's like, I doubt that by cheating death they were talking about like becoming Force ghosts, because it seems like the Jedi kind of already had that on lock.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about. It's like, obviously I don't know the rules of the Force or of the Star Wars universe. I don't claim to, but it's like, can Sith even become Force ghosts? Like, it seems like that's like a Jedi specific thing, because Anakin at the end in Return of the Jedi became a Force ghost after he like went back to the light.
Yeah. Not that this is within our realm, but just through my own perusing of YouTube and shit, on one of the shows, and don't ask me which because I don't know, but on one of those like animated shows, Yoda went to like some fucking Sith temple, and I don't know if it's in the same realm or not, but he went and like visited Plagueis's tomb or some stupid shit, and Plagueis like force projected himself in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some weird stuff.
I don't know. See, and I don't know if, I guess I assume it's canonical then.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I the only one that I could possibly know that you're talking about is, I think in Clone Wars, I don't know if they go to this same location like multiple times. They very well could have, and I just don't know. But like they go, like Yoda goes to that temple, and then he meets Darth Bane, who
that might have been
was
it.
the guy that started the whole thing of
The
like
rule of
the
two.
rule of two.
Yeah.
And how like there can only ever be two Sith, and that's like the only thing that I know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I probably got a mangled up.
But it's like, I don't know. I think that like the like rises like with the Emperor or Palpatine or whatever being back. I just think that that's obviously, I don't know how the story is gonna go, but I think it's like kind of like really lazy, because are we ever gonna get any kind of explanation like in main? Because I don't know if it's been written in like a book or a comic, because like the Star Wars canon has gotten all messy again because of all the different stuff that they're doing. But it's like, are we ever gonna get an explanation as to how this extremely powerful Dark Force user just all of a sudden came into like the main universe again? It would like
That was
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
assume they're gonna. I would hope at least, unless he's just being projected as like a Force ghost or whatever. I would hope they would at least somewhat explain like where he's been, how he survived, kind of thing.
That
Yeah,
was
Instead of it just like, oh, I'm Palpatine, I'm back, haha, Force lightning, boo.
yeah.
Ride the lightning, bitch. That was my biggest problem with Snoke. Like, where the fuck did you come from?
Like the ambiguity.
Yeah, well, it's like I read something that like I don't know if it's from a book that he was like from like somewhere far, like away from the outer rim, and
Yeah.
like in an area that like we had never heard of, and that he studied like an ancient force of like. Or like an ancient dark force or whatever that's like, and it was like, well, we never saw any of that. We saw him as like a big hologram in the Force Awakens, and then we saw him in his gold
Yeah.
cloaks
Yeah.
in the second one, and
Yeah,
that was
that
like
was-
the only experience.
Well, I'm pretty sure what you're talking about because they made that book that was supposed to bridge the gap between Return of the Jedi and the Force Awakens. I forget what it was called, but it's like the events, like how the First Order rose up and all that. I'm pretty sure that's where it explains where Snoke comes from.
Yeah, well, and it's like that's all cool, and I would be happy to read that and everything, but it's like I think that takes a lot of context out of them. It's like I'm all for them doing like other projects like books and comics and video games and whatever, but like the minute that those stories start affecting what stories are being told like with the movies, because it's like if their logic was, oh, we don't need to explain Snoke, we explained him once in this like 3-page thing in this
Yeah.
one book, like
You can't go in like, okay, everyone knows where Snoke comes from because everyone's read that book,
right.
which is probably going to be, which may end up being a problem. Not to bring it all the way back to this, but the Marvel shows where it's like, well, everyone knows what's going on here. Remember episode 8 of She-Hulk? I mean, come on.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, it's like, how many movies are we into? 21, 22 movies in the MCU, and it's like, I've seen every single one of them, and like obviously the big stuff I remember, but there's like some small like nods or whatever that I like Far From Home, for instance. It's like the guy who like runs Mysterio's illusions and stuff, like that guy. I mean, obviously they showed it or whatever, but if it wasn't for Far From Home showing that was the scientist that Obadiah Stane yelled at in the very first Iron Man movie, I would have never put that together.
Yeah. And now, I haven't seen Iron Man 1 in a while, but he's in that, right? Is he like actually in that, or was that like an added thing?
No, that actually happens. Because it's like it's right after Tony gets back, and it's not right up. It's basically Tony gets back and he shows like Obadiah like the arc reactor in his chest, and then that's like he hears that like Tony wants to stop the weapon division, but then also knows that Tony made this suit and is like kind of trying to be like, okay, well, if Tony's going to stop this and he wants to put more energy into the arc stuff, I'm going to like act like I'm doing that, but I'm really trying to get this weapon going again.
Yeah. And so that scientist dude goes up to Obadiah and is like, we can't figure it out. And then that's when Obadiah's like, he built this in a cave.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, I'm not Tony Stark. I'm not that smart.
I don't have that smart brain. The big boy smart brain. That's not me.
And then, like, to go back to, now bring it all the way back to the Rise of Skywalker, talk about the poster.
Full circle.
I don't know, I don't hate it, but, like, I feel like Palpatine in the background just kind of looks dopey.
It looks so silly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think it was with you, Matt, that I had originally been like, oh, I don't know, I kind of like it, but I don't think I ever really saw, like, Palpatine honestly looks like a video game character. Like, he doesn't even look
Yeah,
like
it just
actually
looks dopey. now
like
so, like, he has Sith eyes in this, which is interesting because Kylo didn't and Snoke didn't because they weren't Sith, right? That's the whole thing.
yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
it just kind of looks weird.
Well, because so the context of that is that like there's a difference between like somebody who's a Jedi and somebody who like uses the light side of the Force, and there's somebody between someone who's like a Sith and somebody who uses the dark side of the Force. Like you can use the dark side of the Force without necessarily like falling under the Sith code of like you can only use anger and hate and fear to fuel it.
Because it's like
it's a
religion,
belief.
like the Jedi.
Right. And that's why it's like, because like Darth is like the title for like all the Sith or whatever, and then like Kylo Ren, it's like they've done almost nothing with it, but like he's part of the Knights of Ren, and like Ren is the name for this new group of Force users. Because there's like Maul, he in the Star Wars, like I think in Clone Wars and Rebels, he like has a falling out with the Sith because he survives from what we saw him in Phantom Menace, and then he kind of creates his own section of dark Force users, and he just calls himself Maul, but he's not a Sith.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know.
You can transition to the Joker,
Ooh.
the new Joker movie.
Yes, please. I think it looks awesome.
I think this trailer was really good. I think I like the first one more.
I was thinking the same thing, actually. I like the trailer, but I definitely enjoyed the first one a little better.
But I'll say, like, I don't think that this trailer, like, it wasn't like, oh man, I don't know about this one now, or like it didn't like lower my expectations. Like, it kept me right at where I was, which
Yeah.
I'm already like extremely excited about.
For me, it was just like more. It wasn't anything where I got more hyped or like less hyped. It was just like more. It was just more like
content.
to see. I'm excited
Yeah,
for it. I was
well-
telling Brian when this trailer dropped, whatever was it, yesterday or whatever. Immediately trending on Twitter was Heath Ledger, and I'm a big Heath Ledger Joker fan. And even still, I just think it's like really kind of unfair that it's like always has to go back to him. It's like always compared to him.
Well, because it's like it's not like obviously it's like an amazing performance, but it's like somebody could come out and give a perfectly fine performance, like nothing big, nothing like it's not bad, it's not the most amazing thing, but just like a solid performance or whatever, and they'll still be looked at as like, yeah, but I mean, have you seen Heath Ledger? Like,
yeah, and it's like we've had one Joker since Heath Ledger, and it's Jared Leto, who I hate, and I don't know. It's like, but I'm ready. I'm ready to accept Joaquin Phoenix. I am ready to move on from Heath Ledger. I could not with Jared Leto, but I am ready for Joaquin Phoenix. I'm here for it.
I'm excited for it because it has no ties to anything else, and like
which is
I like that they're taking this like idea of the Joker and implementing him in a way that isn't necessarily part of any story that DC has created before. It just really puts a really cool spin on a person, an idea, a character that we already know.
Well, it's like, we've talked about all of this with like Marvel and Star Wars. It's like, oh, do I have to watch all these shows to understand this and that? And then it's like, not only from that perspective, but it's also like from a filmmaker's perspective, it's like, oh, I can't do this with this character that I want to because in this movie that this like it's Ryan Coogler, who made Black Panther, he could like be wanting to kind of do something in Black Panther too, but then if they like do something permanent to him in Infinity War or Endgame, where now Ryan Coogler can't do that, then it's like, well, then he's just kind of screwed. But like I like this whole idea that DC is doing of like, what if we could make movies outside of the DCEU, which is absolute garbage and is a complete dumpster fire. It's like I feel like they're doing this almost as like a safety. Like, oh, like if this doesn't work out, like we're gonna kind of start these like other properties and everything and like see how that goes.
And it's like the state of movies nowadays. It's almost like refreshing to have like you could have just like a one movie where it tells its own story. When it's like everything, it's like how do we make a Terminator extended universe? How do we make a Monsters extended universe? How do we make like a freaking Dracula extended universe? It's like everything has to be like tied into everything else, and it's nice to see like a movie that can just stand alone and be its own thing.
Yeah, it's like not every single thing has to be a sequel or like a part of a bigger. It's like, we all thought that A Quiet Place was like a pretty good movie, and then at the end of it, it was like this was a really good, self-contained, like in its own right story. And then it was like, oh, they're looking at doing a sequel because it did really well financially. It's like, can't you just take a win? Like,
yeah, and that's not really a new thing, obviously, but it's like more so like let's make a Quiet Place expanded universe where we have like spin-off Quiet Place movies. It's like, I don't know, but I'm excited for the Joker movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for it because I think that DC desperately needs something that people are really wowed by.
They need a win.
Yeah, they need a win. Yeah,
they need a major win because, quite frankly, I don't know what they're trying to do with their DCEU because it's like, oh, well, we're going to keep Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot or Gadot. I don't know how to say her last name, but like Ben Affleck's out, Henry Cavill's out. We're not doing the Cyborg thing anymore. Flash movie, yeah, we don't know if that's being made or not. And it's like they're all over the place. And then it's like I'm pretty sure their Disney, not Disney, a DC Universe streaming service was a pretty much utter failure. It's
Yeah.
just like I just it's like
Their most
I
successful
don't think
shit
they
is
know
their
what they're
animated
doing.
stuff, and the fucking people that are making the live action movies have no part in those.
And I never saw the Teen Titans show, like the live action one, but I heard it
Heard it was no good.
wasn't great.
Yeah, I heard the same thing, and like I don't know, they put a trailer for that out. I didn't watch it all the way through. Well, I don't know, I might have, but like it definitely seemed like it changed tone a lot. Like they were really kind of trying to change the entire, like the entire elements of the show, just to like because they knew that that first season didn't work, and I don't know. It's just like what route right now does DC have that's like showing promise?
Yeah. And I think like I don't know, as far as I understand it, right? I'm pretty sure like a lot of these DC movies are doing well, like box office wise. And I wasn't even like a huge critic of the Aquaman movie either. I thought it was all right, but it wasn't like anything amazing. See, that's how I felt about a lot of these DC movies, though. It's like I've walked out of a lot of them basically since Batman vs Superman, going, yeah, it was all right, it was all right. Short of like
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, where I walked out saying, yeah, that was garbage, but
Which it's like I'm not sitting here saying that they have to copy Marvel, but it's like when you've had like the kings of the expanded universe running for, I don't know, but at the time when Batman and Superman came out, probably like I don't know, 7, 8 years at that point, maybe 6. It's like you can't come out here with subpar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like I don't. It's hard to like fault them for being like, okay, we got to get to Justice League. Like we kind of have to like we're way behind. Like we got to get to Justice League. But it's like there's something to be said about Marvel taking like and they had the time obviously to take like the slow approach. And then like the first Avengers felt like, oh yes, like we're coming together. And then the first Justice League felt like I don't care.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, and that was like. Because I'm not sitting here saying that, like, a lot of people sit there and say, like, oh, well, it's because they didn't do a Batman movie, and then a Wonder Woman movie, and then an Aquaman movie. I'm not saying they had to do that, but it just kind of felt like it was, like, I don't even remember. It was, like, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League.
Yeah. And then it's like, here's Cyborg, here's Flash. Like, in the first 30 minutes, here they are. Those are Justice League people. You know them. And it's like, it felt more personal in the first Avengers because I've seen Thor like for a movie. I've seen Captain America. I've seen Iron Man for 2 movies now. It's like, and now they're coming together like to fight aliens. And it just felt like a lot more personal than just like, here are the Justice League. Isn't that cool? Like, haha, Justice
Wow,
League.
look, everybody, it's the Justice League. Whoa.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. And it's just like, even within the movies that they made, it was like Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman to Justice League felt like almost a completely different character.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's
And-
like, how much are we just spend of like this entire podcast like talking about like, oh man, look at what Disney's doing, and it's specifically with Marvel, because it's like even though like we're kind of like weary about like what Marvel's doing, it's like they still have all of these movies and they still have all of these shows and everything, and it's like even though I don't think I'm gonna like everything that they're putting out or whatever, I'm gonna give every single one of these things a chance because Marvel has built up that reputation. Now if a DC movie comes out, I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'm gonna go see it, but I don't know.
Yeah. But it's like, you're gonna still see the big hitters like the Batman with I almost said Edward Cullen, Robert Pattinson, and I'm still gonna go see that. Like, there's nothing you can do to change that. But it's like, am I that excited? Are they still making a Cyborg movie? Is that still happening?
I don't think so. I think like one of the big things was that like how expensive Cyborg's suit was to do, like just CG and everything. It was like to put him in a whole movie like that would be like astronomical cost. Like I think it was like if the whole idea was like, oh, we can do it in Justice League because Justice League should be something that brings out a lot of people, which obviously didn't work. But it's like with the Justice Cyborg movie, it's like we can't justify spending $250 million on that movie before even marketing if it's not going to bring back that big of a return.
And like, who was watching Justice League going, man, Cyborg's really killing it in this one. He's really putting on a transcendent performance.
I need more of that guy. Can I get a movie?
And that's the thing. And then are we getting a Flash movie still?
So says those reports.
As of right now, yeah, I don't know. Well, because I think they've had 3 different directors. The release date has changed 3 times. Now I don't think there's a release date at all. Ezra Miller's being coy about it. it's like I think it's something that they might want to do, which it's like I don't. It's like where's the line? Like they like Marvel outside of like a couple changes that I can think of. It's like for the most part, it's like this is our plan. This is what we're doing, and it's like DC seems to not understand the concept of that like at all.
Yeah, and it's like we were talking about like all the problems that are facing Disney and Marvel. They pale in comparison. Like those are good problems to have compared to what DC's have to go through right now.
Right, it's like, oh man, Marvel's making all this stuff for people to watch, and people are going to want to watch it, but I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with it. It's just, people love Marvel, and they can't watch enough of the shows.
There's just like, so much to watch, I can't do it.
And I want to, but I'm going to have to quit my job. I'm going to have to quit my job.
There's only one solution.
And watch these.
But how many people were like, oh my god, what's going to happen the next time the Justice League gets together? I can't wait for that.
I just don't understand, like, because it's like the things that they're keeping with like Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot and everything. It's like, but then you're gonna bring in Robert Pattinson's Batman, I guess, as in placement of Ben Affleck's. But it's like that's gonna be like we talked about that getting Tom Holland and then like Venom and everything is gonna be confusing and whatnot. But like I think that's gonna be even more confusing. And it's like is what Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot like. Or Godot, like I said, you know, is what they offered so valuable, like you can't let that go.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's like DC's like, well, people liked Harley Quinn, people liked Wonder Woman, people liked Aquaman, so like we're gonna keep that but scrap everything else. And it's like, also, are you gonna go in with this like Robert Pattinson Batman, and he's just a continuation of what Ben Affleck was, like he shared the same experiences, like he's been through like these movies with them, but now he's like a different actor. He just looks different.
And is like...
Totally different.
I'm going to guess at least 10 or 15 years younger.
And and that's another thing, because like this Batman is like, I've been through like Robin dying. I'm like the old
Batman. If it's some young dude, how are you going to sell that?
And now it's like, Robert Pattinson's here. It's like,
he's like 30-something, I don't know.
He's like definitely doesn't have like the grizzle, like
old
DILF look of Ben Affleck.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's like... I don't know. I pulled up the like all the different DCU movies, and first of all, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I completely forgot Shazam was a thing.
Oh yeah, shit, me too.
Yeah, Shazam.
I totally.
It was okay.
It literally came out this year.
Damn, did it really?
And
yeah, it was earlier this year. It was like March.
Yeah, it was like in March. Yeah, and God,
whoops.
It's like.
I didn't hate Shazam.
I didn't either. I thought it was pretty good.
Fan, but I didn't hate it. It was another one where I went, it was alright. You know?
I mean, I was insane.
I think. Outside of a lot of people disagree with this, but I actually think Man of Steel is like pretty great.
I have to revisit it.
But like, honestly, I think Shazam was probably like the movie like out of all the other DC movies what I like walked out like pretty thoroughly enjoyed of like what I had seen. Like I said, it wasn't anything that was like knocked my socks off, but it was like I walked out like, man, that was a good movie experience.
Yeah. I think Shazam was 30 minutes too long.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was like that last 30, 40 minutes that I was kind of like, all right, let's like wrap it up.
Well, I think they bit off more than they could chew by splitting Shazam into like the Shazam family or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because like to look forward to this, so with what they're trying to do now with the DC, as far as this says, it's the next movie is Birds of Prey, which is that... well, I don't know if that's technically the next movie. It just kind of goes by year. It's not like the actual release dates. But in 2020, it should be Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984. And then in 2021 will be The Batman. And then the Suicide Squad, like, reboot, not reboot. I don't really know. Because, like, Viola Davis is coming back as Amanda Waller. Jai Courtney is coming back as Boomerang. Or Captain Boomerang, and one other character I can't remember. And then supposedly The Flash is coming out in 2021, Aquaman 2, and then a Black Adam movie, which has been slated before any of these other movies were ever even created. Because they have a contract with The Rock that whenever they make that movie, he's going to be Black Adam.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to see how all of this changes with their recent failures. Not that Shazam was a failure, but...
And it's like, how many of these projects, I wonder, are too far along or contractually so, where they if they were just like we're blowing it up tomorrow, it's like they just still have to happen. Like it just has to happen. You know?
Right.
Just put
Well, it's like,
something out
yeah.
there.
Honestly, like, and I'm glad that they're still able to get talent, but like, if I'm an actor and my agent comes up like, "Hey, so DC's
No.
making this new movie," I'm like, no,
Not doing
move
it.
on from that one. What about Marvel? What are they doing?
Oh,
Yeah, because you're
no Marvel
that's the thing,
contracts.
right? If you're an actor and you're in some crappy movie about nothing, it's like okay, and you were just in some crappy movie about nothing. But it's like people are passionate about like these characters.
Well-
so if like you're playing Batman and you're making an ass of yourself,
It's the same. It's the
Like,
whole Clooney ordeal. How fucking
Yeah.
he didn't necessarily have a. It wasn't his say that his fucking Batman was going to be cartoony and have fucking nipples poking out of his suit. But like now that's what he's known for, and every time he's brought up and Batman's brought up, they're gonna go, "Hey, you were that fucking queer Batman, right?"
yeah, and he apologizes for it. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he apologizes at the fact that that movie even
Yeah.
exists. Like, or it's like now it's like, are we like whenever I think of like a Christian Bale who is arguably in like the best Batman movies that have been made, it's like I don't think of like Christian Bale's performance. I think of Harvey.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just it's the character transcends the actor or whatever, and it's like I don't know. I'm not saying obviously George Clooney had like a good career afterwards.
thank God.
But it's like Birds of Prey. I think that Ewan McGregor's been having a good little stint for a little while, and he's gonna be playing what's that character's name? I think it's like Black Mask or something like that.
From Batman.
Yeah.
Black
Yeah,
Mask.
it's Black
DC.
Mask.
Yeah. That's the character. Like that's going to be the main villain in this Birds of Prey, like Harley
Oh, okay.
Quinn,
I actually didn't know that.
villainess movie or whatever. And it's just like you're already seeing. It's like think of all like regardless of whether you think that like every single one of these people are like great actors or whatever. It's like think of all the people that they've had that came into the DC. It's like Ben Affleck, Will
Yeah.
Smith in a very small nothing
Yeah.
role. Margot Robbie and Jared Leto. While I don't think that was the greatest Joker, like he's shown to have some on-screen talent in the background or in the back and everything. And it's like it's just you could go through the like all these actors, even if they didn't do that great, like in their own roles, have done great throughout other films. And it's like they had so much talent build up with it, and it seems like that's all squandered now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you're saying. It's like, it's one thing to have good actors. I mean, George Clooney, we can probably all agree, is a pretty good actor. But, like, he was just miserable. He was, like, in a miserable movie where he was a miserable Batman. It's like you have to, like, take over the role, like, the character, more than, like, I'm going to, like, George Clooney this role.
Yeah, I don't know. I to bring it back with what started all of this, I hope the Joker's really good, and I hope that it's good because that idea of, like, DC seeing that, like, doing outside, like, projects would work, because as it stands right now with like Marvel and DC, we'll never get another Dark Knight trilogy.
No.
Because you won't have the ability for like a character to be used outside of like its cinematic universe. Like we've talked a couple of times throughout the past weeks, like how overpowered Superman is, and it's like, what if you could write a universe where you're like kind of changing his character a little bit that then won't affect the overall larger universe, but would like kind of allow for a little bit more like creative freedom.
Yeah. That's
like
the problem with a lot of DC people, heroes, and villains, is that
They have god powers.
they're written as such where they're just, like, overtly powerful, like Superman and even, like, the
Shazam,
Flash. Shazam, and it's like, what is a threat to Superman?
None.
Well, it's like we now have in Marvel, like, a alien race has like invaded us like multiple times. Like there's like magic and all this kind of stuff that's added into it, and it's like all of that feels more grounded than some of the stuff that has happened in the DCEU with like Flash and Superman and Shazam, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's the problem though with like DC. It's like problem depending on how you look at it. It's like every threat has to be like world ending. Like it can't just be like, oh, there's like a thug running around. It's like, nope, this has to be like alien, like gonna blow up the earth. And
well, right,
Superman's
because
gotta deal with that.
they can never do a plot like Civil War where it's just like kind of a more psychological like thing with like Zemo or whatever, because it's like the minute Superman found out about that, or if like Flash found out about that, that guy's like neck would be snapped.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, maybe not to that, but it's like he could be dealt with immediately. So it's like, you know, you have to have Doomsday or Darkseid or Steppenwolf like to be able to even have a chance against these characters.
Well, we also live in a DC world now where killing is just a thing that everyone does. Batman's just a killer.
Batman's a killer. Superman kills. Doesn't matter. It's
That's
all gonna
true.
have to
Superman
win.
broke the neck of a man before, so I would not be surprised if he would do it again.
Different circumstance, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to blow up the city if you don't kill me. All right, I'm killing you.
Yeah. Honestly, you're really like, if you're going to make it that like millions of people are going to die and it's like, or it's just you, I mean, I don't want to do it, but I think most people would agree with me that I made the better choice
Kind of
here.
forcing my hand here, guy.
But see, that's the thing with like the no kill, and like not to bring it like to very old news, but like the whole Zack Snyder thing in Batman, like get over yourself, Turbo Virgins. But it's like his whole thing. It's like it'd be so easy for Batman just to break freaking Joker's neck and then I'm done with it. Like wipe my hands clean, like another scum out of Gotham. But it's like his no kill, like he doesn't kill.
That's what the stories are.
Yeah, that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes him an interesting villain.
Right. Well, because it's like, if that was Batman's moral compass, it's like, quite frankly, if that's how he thought and then he wasn't killing the Joker, like if that's how you wrote the story, that Batman was somebody that would like kill and then he didn't kill the Joker, you would be more like, what the hell, than like making it like, no, I don't kill and I don't want to go down this path even with somebody this bad, because once I do, I'll never be able to come back from it. Like that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And that's the beauty.
Those two stories contradict too much.
And I think that what you just said is like kind of the beauty of the ambiguity with the comic, The Killing Joke. How you really don't know how it ends. It's kind of implied that he might have killed him, but like, you don't know.
Yeah, well, I've said this before that like there's a YouTuber that I watch named Hype Top Films that he talks about like the Batman no killing rule, and he kind of like restructured the Martha scene in Batman versus Superman, where he was like, what if in this movie like Batman was somebody that didn't kill anyone, but like he saw Superman, this overwhelmingly powerful being that like wanted to, you know, like he thought that he's a major threat and everything, and then he was like, well, I'm gonna have to break my rule because this is so important that like I cannot allow a being like this to survive. And then throughout the movie we saw his like kind of like mental degrading to get himself to the point where he could like be able to kill him, and then as he's about to like, you know, strike the final blow, that like while Superman's pleading for somebody else's life, like that in itself, regardless of what name he said or whatever, the fact that he was even pleading for another person's life, like
shows he has humanity.
that would have way more of an effect with like the Ben Affleck and like Batman character than just this whole like, oh my god, that's my mom's name.
Yeah, and it's like it's in Batman vs Superman. It's like they're starting. It's like it's almost like they wanted to do that, but like went halfway because like it's the movie. Doesn't the movie start with Thomas and Martha getting killed? Right.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the pearls
And then
drop
it's
on
like,
the ground.
and you were saying it's like if we had been in this world where we saw Batman like getting beaten down, like he was watching the Joker die, he's like having all these, like he's like deep into this world of being the Batman, where it's like now he's like, you know what, I'm done with criminals, I'm gonna start killing them. And then that moment of like, Martha, save Martha, and he like realizes, he goes back to like his parents and like the whole reason he has that like no kill policy.
Yeah, well,
And it
because
snaps
it's like
him out of it.
yeah, that's the whole thing with the no kill rule, is that it starts as like, because he, if I remember, I think this is both comic accurate and it's been shown in a couple of the movies, I think, but it's like the whole idea is that like he realizes that, like if he kills the guy who killed his parents, that like, because I think he figures out that that guy has a son, and it's like, well, I'm gonna take this kid's father away, and it's like a whole thing of like, I'm just becoming the very thing that like I have sworn to like destroy and everything, and it's like, so I can't go down this path.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost my train of thought with what I was saying with that, but it's just like, so so like with the beginning of Batman vs Superman, it's like when they it's like, no, we don't need to see that Batman's parents died again. Like that's so like within culture now that like most people walking into a Batman movie, if you don't know, you're sitting next to somebody who could tell you that that's like his main thing. And it's like, so when they showed that, I remember thinking like, oh, like they're gonna get into this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that's gonna be important.
Yeah, but it really
Amounted
was
to nothing.
like. Well, no, I mean it was important because we had to
Martha.
make sure that we knew his name. His mother's name was Martha.
Yeah,
Mother.
which is the everyone knows Batman's parents died, but did you know his mother's name was Martha?
Yeah, so remember that. Remember
Yeah.
that. It's gonna be important.
We spiced it up a little. This time you got to pay attention.
But
Well,
yeah, you
yeah.
talk
well,
for hours and hours about the dumpster fire of DC's latest movies.
yeah.
But we're hoping the Joker's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because, like, if the Joker's good, are they gonna do a sequel?
I don't know.
Like,
Probably.
I'm not a huge fan of this type of.
More like if Joker's good, are they going to go, yeah, sorry, bud, it's called You're Going to Be in the Batman movie.
Ooh.
Or like you're going to be in a Batman movie at one point.
well, yeah, well, especially now, it's like I don't know where Jared Leto's allegiance is now because he's gonna be in that Morbius movie for
Yeah, frankly, I
Sony.
don't care. Because I would really hate to see Jared Leto in a Batman movie.
Well, yeah, that's true. But well, I don't know. You want to talk about now? We're really screwing up the timeline because it seems that this Joker movie takes place like kind of like not modern day, and like
Yeah,
you
isn't
know,
like
we're
Batman's
seeing,
not even born yet? Bruce
yeah,
Wayne?
well,
No,
it's,
he's
it's
born.
that,
He's a
or
kid.
it's like he's a child,
Oh, okay.
The
and then like because it shows Thomas
Yeah.
Wayne in that newest
and Bruce
trailer.
Wayne. Bruce
Well,
Wayne's the kid.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Isn't it like a whole thing? There's like a theory or like a comic book thing that like Joker is Joe Chill.
There's one
the guy that
adaptation
killed,
where he is like, it's not Joe Chill, it's the Joker, but you know, originally it was Joe Chill, and then fucking, you know how that turns out.
I wonder if they'll go with that route. Like at the end, the movie ends with Joker killing.
There is I don't know if you guys caught this, but of course I watched a YouTube breakdown because I'm not this noticed. I don't have such a keen eye. There's a scene where people are like running out of a theater, and Thomas, Bruce, and Martha are walking out of the theater, and Joker, Phoenix is like running in there as the Joker character in his like little getup. So people are speculating that maybe we're gonna get a little different adaptation of what happens in Crime Alley.
Yeah, or perhaps even if it isn't Joker pulling the trigger, perhaps he had something to do with it. But then wouldn't that make, I don't know his age, but it's like, wouldn't that make him pretty old by the time that Batman's like beating him
Yeah,
to death?
that's a lot of people's issue with this, like introduction of Bruce Wayne. But then I feel like most people's issue with that isn't. It's coming from the point of like, originally it's not like that. Joker and Batman are around the same age. That's how they're so equally matched. But this is like, it's not a comic book adaptation. It's the ideology of a character being placed in this new reality.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they're not taking any inspiration from the comics.
This is a brand
Totally
new story.
none.
So anyway, I think that's
It's a good wrap up.
What are we at? I think, yeah, good. Nearly hour and a
Yeah.
half.
I'm over an hour and a half, but
Oh yeah, I guess you would be.
I started a little early.
All right. Well, good podcast, boys.
All right,
Deuces.
man, not bad.